Hey, what's going on, guys? OJ back here with another video. Today, we are here to talk about UFC fighters who have gone on a downward spiral, and we're going to be ranking them based on how tragic they are. Because these are guys who, at one point, that were at the top of their division, maybe even a champion. But unfortunately, these guys have not looked like championship caliber fighters over the last couple of years. And it's kind of sad because at one point, maybe these guys could have prevented these losses had they been more in their prime. But as of recently, they have just not looked good. And we're going to be ranking them based on how sad it is to see some of our fan favorite fighters lose. So without wasting any more time, though, let's jump right into the video. Now, I'm not going to say that Israel Adesanya going on a 4-fight losing streak is tragic, but it is kind of surreal to see this because I thought that after he knocked out Alex Pereira, he's going to go on a second dominant title run and get at least like 4 or 5 more defenses before the new generation shows up. But unfortunately for Israel Adesanya, the new generation showed up a lot sooner than we expected. He lost to Sean Strickland, got choked out by DDP, got knocked out by Nasruddin Imavov, and then to top it all off, Joe Pyfer ground and pound TKO'd him in the second round. And it's kind of weird because he went from being a dominant champion to a washed up has-been in just 3 years, which is crazy to say. But the thing is, though, I don't really consider Israel Adesanya completely washed because while you could say that, oh, Joe Pyfer is nowhere near Israel Adesanya's prime, to be fair, though, I also believe that the modern-day middleweight is way better than when Israel Adesanya was a dominant champion. Like, I feel like the division's kind of caught up to him, and if anything, I'm more excited for this because I get to watch like modern day middleweights who are actually talented and skilled and have the right frame being able to display high level mixed martial arts, right? Like, no offense to Israel Adesanya, when he's fighting Marvin Vettori or Kelvin Gastelum, like, yes, you could say that, oh, the Kelvin Gastelum fight was fun. I wouldn't say, though, that was prime middleweights. Like, I feel like the middleweights today are just so much better, which is why I just feel like Israel Adesanya being set up as a stepping stool for most of these guys who are on the come up. I feel like that's the correct thing to do, and I'm honestly not sad about that because I want to see a lot of these modern middleweights try to get into the top of the division and fight each other because I believe that will produce the better fights. And unfortunately for Israel Adesanya, he's just now the washed unk that's going to be fed to the upcoming dangerous prospects. But I don't feel any sort of tragedy for him because first off, he's not looking that bad. He's not getting flatlined out cold like the other people that we'll be talking about in this video. And I'm more excited about the current day middleweights than back when Israel Adesanya was the middleweight champion for the longest time. Now, I used to be a big fan of Brandon Moreno, but as of recently, I don't feel the same for him anymore. Because back when he was the champion, back when he was fighting Figueiredo multiple times, I had a lot of fun watching flyweight, but whenever I watch Brandon Moreno currently, he just doesn't look the same. Like, even when he wins, like when he beats like Steve Urseg and Amir Albazi, like, sure, he's winning the fight, but I do believe that had Brandon Moreno been more of his hungrier state, I also believe that he would have been able to easily beat guys like Steve Urseg and possibly even finish him. It just sucks that Brandon Moreno, I feel like the division's caught up to him at this point. The only reason I'm going to put him this low, though, is because he hasn't been brutally flatlined. Like, the only time he's lost via finish as of recently was against Tatsuro Taira, and Tatsuro Taira kind of got an early stoppage win. So I don't feel necessarily sad for him. That being said, though, the Looney Kavanaugh fight, not exactly the greatest look. It kind of just showed that Moreno, he's just no longer a top contender at flyweight. But either way, though, Brandon Moreno, I do feel a little bit more sad for because when he was fighting at flyweight for the title or like just being in the title picture in general, it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun. Not to say that current flyweights are boring as hell or anything like that. But yeah, I used to really love watching Brandon Moreno fight. But as of recently, like, it just doesn't feel the same anymore because A, he's been losing a lot. And also B, I feel like a lot of the people in the flyweight division have just figured him out, and he just doesn't look hungry like he used to back when he was trying to climb up to be the best in the world. So at number 8, I got Calvin Kattar. Now, while I'm not exactly the biggest Calvin Kattar fan, I do remember some of his banger fights, like when he fought Giga Chikadze back in the day. But honestly, though, he has not looked the same ever since he fought Arnold Allen. Like, ever since he injured his leg against Arnold Allen, and then he's been sitting out for multiple years now, he has looked so slow and so lethargic, and it just doesn't feel like the old Calvin Kattar fights where, like, sure, he's getting hit a lot, but he can mount a comeback. Like, that guy's known for being vicious. He's known for being a tough son of a gun. But yeah, sure, you could say that he's still tough. Like, I don't think his toughness has really left him, but it just doesn't feel like Calvin Kattar is really in there to fight anymore. Like, I watch Calvin Kattar try to press forward. He is just a walking statue compared to most of these guys right now. So unfortunately for Calvin Kattar, I just don't feel like he's the same anymore. He hasn't been brutally slimed out yet, though, so I think that's kind of a plus. But ever since he injured himself against Arnold Allen, I don't think he's been the same. I think he's just way too slow to be competing in the UFC as of right now. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to include Calvin Kattar on this list. Now, this is where things start to get sad, right? Because Beneil Dariush, he was a top 5 contender at lightweight 3 years ago. But now he's looked at as a washed unk with a glass jaw. And Beneil Dariush, like, sure, you could say, oh, he's fighting the best of the best. But at the same time, though, it also feels like this guy's chin just evaporated ever since he lost to Charles Oliveira. Because he then got slimed out by Arman Tsarukyan with no resistance. Beat Moicano, and he showed that he still has the ability to make a crafty vet decision if his opponent doesn't slime him out in the first round. But nowadays, asking Beneil Dariush not to get slimed out in the first round is just a huge ask, because he then proceeded to get slimed out by BSD in 16 seconds. And you just can't be getting slimed out like that by BSD in 16 seconds. So unfortunately for Beneil Dariush, I think he is completely cooked. And it doesn't help that the UFC is just feeding this guy to the next dangerous prospect. Like, this guy was supposed to fight Manuel Torres. Thank goodness that Manuel Torres pulled out of that fight. But it didn't really get much better for him, because he then got matched up with Quillen Salkilde on the Perth card coming this May. So I'm just going to pray for Beneil Dariush's safety, but I do feel like this is kind of tragic, considering he was like a good contender in the lightweight division at one point. But now it's like, does he even belong in the UFC? Because he clearly cannot take a punch without being flatlined in the process. And I think that's going to be an issue for Beneil Dariush. So I hope to see Beneil Dariush retire after he gets slimed out by Quillen Salkilde. But if he can still somehow craft up a unk performance against Quillen Salkilde, I still want to see him retire, because he's going to get fed to the next dangerous prospect like Manuel Torres, and Manuel Torres will probably slime him out then after, because that's kind of been the pattern of Beneil Dariush's career over the last couple of years. Now, moving on to Gilbert Burns, I just don't think he's looked the same since losing to Belal Muhammad. And even in that Belal Muhammad fight, because he was fighting with one arm, he just looked like a shell of himself out there. And sure, he was doing well against JDM before JDM threw the knee. But then it was after JDM threw the knee, I think that permanently changed Gilbert Burns, because he has not been able to take damage the same way. He got bitched by Sean Brady for 5 rounds straight. And then to top it all off, Michael Morales slept him out cold in the first round. And I understand that it's Michael Morales and he's really good, but I feel like prime Gilbert Burns would have put up more of a fight. And to see Gilbert Burns just look like a complete victim out there, it is kind of sad. And I don't think he's capable of taking damage like he used to, and which is why I'm unfortunately going to have to say that Mike Malott is going to slime him out. Because, again, Gilbert Burns, although I rate his skills a lot better than Mike Malott's, at the same time, though, I don't think Gilbert Burns has any sort of chin left to be fighting in the cage. So, yeah, Gilbert Burns, it's kind of tragic. At one point, he was looked at as like an elite level top 5 gatekeeper. But nowadays, he's just looked at as a washed has-been with no chin and no durability. And he's probably going to be slimed out come his next fight against Mike Malott. Now, this is where shit starts getting really sad. Because within the span of 2 years, Leon Edwards went from being pound for pound number 3 on the UFC roster to being a fluke champion who shouldn't have won the belt at all. All right. And it's the way he's been losing because every loss became worse and worse for him. Like, losing to Belal Muhammad, like, all right, it was a close fight. It was like 48-47. Belal Muhammad was just a better fighter that night. But it was like, oh, Leon Edwards, he could still make a run. You know, he's still an elite level contender. And he could possibly just get back into the belt depending on the right matchups. Then he got bitched by Sean Brady, and Sean Brady literally just had his way with him for 4 rounds. And then to top it all off, Carlos Prates slimed his ass out. And I don't think Leon Edwards, he's got no hope left at this point. Like, he's going to get fed to Uros Medic in a couple of months. And it's going to be the end of Leon Edwards. Uros Medic is going to slime his ass out in the first round because that's what Uros Medic does. It's just kind of sad, to be honest. Like, I at one point, I was low-key a Leon Edwards fan because I was like, oh my gosh, he looks so pretty on the feet. But as he started getting exposed by all of these fights, you know, like the Belal Muhammad fight and the Colby Covington fight, where you start to realize, hang on a minute, this guy doesn't do anything. He just throws leg kicks at range nonstop, and it doesn't really do shit to his opponents. Moving on, we got Tyron Woodley. Now, if I were to look at Tyron Woodley's UFC career alone, I would not find it as tragic as someone as Leon Edwards. But the thing is, though, Tyron Woodley, first off, he has looked progressively worse after every single loss following his Kamaru Usman loss. And it's also the fact that he got knocked out by Jake Paul, of all people, in a boxing match. Dog, I don't know what you're doing out there fighting in boxing if you're getting knocked out by Jake Paul. But he unfortunately got knocked out by Jake Paul, of all people, and he became the laughingstock of the boxing and MMA world. So it's kind of tragic for Tyron Woodley. You know, at one point, he was a dominant champion in the welterweight division. He had a lot of title defenses. He was looked at as Kamaru Usman before Kamaru Usman really took his mantle. And unfortunately for Tyron Woodley, ever since he lost to Kamaru Usman, he has just not looked the same, which is why I have him pretty high up on my list. Now, this one really hurts me, man, because Vicente Luque used to be so fun to watch. But nowadays, when I watch Vicente Luque fight, he looks like a complete victim out there ever since he lost to Jeff Neal. And it's sad because I know why Vicente Luque can't fight the same way. He's got a fucking brain hemorrhage when Jeff Neal beat his ass. And I can't call someone who suffered through a brain hemorrhage because he got his ass beat a quitter, to be honest. But I just don't want to see Vicente Luque fight anymore. Like, his toughness is gone. And that was the whole thing about Vicente Luque. You know, he starts off slow. He gets beat up in the early parts of a fight. But he starts picking things up. Right? That's what made Vicente Luque so good and fun to watch. But it's just gone now. Like, I can't watch Vicente Luque fight anymore without wincing every time because this guy, he just can't take damage the same way. He's shying away from every single exchange. He's diving at the legs at the first sign of adversity. He literally turned into the welterweight version of Anthony Smith. And it's tragic because Vicente Luque was actually that guy at one point. And it is so sad to see this guy go from being this marauder who was known for fun brawls, who got himself into the fire and came out on top a lot of the times, to someone who gets victimized on a regular basis. So yeah, unfortunately for Vicente Luque, please retire after you lose to Kelvin Gastelum. Like, I don't want to see Vicente Luque fight anymore. And if he keeps losing, I'm going to bump him up, right? I do believe that at this point, like, had Vicente Luque lose, maybe 3 more fights, and he keeps fighting at middleweight for some retarded reason, I'm going to have to start saying that Vicente Luque might be one of the most tragic downfalls in recent UFC history. You know it is a tragic downfall when the guy who I'm talking about hasn't even lost a fight, yet he's already on a downward trajectory in his career. Because this guy has gotten injured nonstop over and over again on the same knee, and it's been over 2 years since we've last seen the man. And I don't even know if he's ever going to fight again. This guy's supposed to be in the prime of his career, challenging Islam Makhachev for the belt right now. But unfortunately, Shavkat Rakhmonov, he's just not going to be available anytime soon. And I don't know if he's ever going to be. All right, this guy's a bigger what if than Zabit. And sure, you could say, oh, Zabit, what if he didn't have any cardio issues? Like, dog, I've seen Zabit nearly lose to Calvin Kattar at the end of a fight. Like, had it been a 5-round main event like every UFC event should be, Zabit would have probably lost that to Calvin Kattar. All right, but Shavkat Rakhmonov, on the other hand, he shows elite level skills at everywhere, including the ability to go 5 hard rounds with guys like Ian Gary, who's notoriously known for having very good cardio and pacing. So I do believe that Shavkat Rakhmonov was the biggest what if of all time, way bigger than Zabit, which is why I rate this as such a tragedy. Because had this guy been healthy, I really do believe that he had a solid chance to get to the welterweight belt. And sure, you could say, oh, Islam Makhachev moved up to welterweight. You know, he might be the roadblock for him. Shavkat Rakhmonov's like way bigger than Makhachev, right? Like I didn't use that argument for JDM because I knew realistically that JDM and Makhachev were similar size. But Shavkat Rakhmonov, I believe he had the skills in the grappling as well as the strength and physicality to really test Islam Makhachev. So I thought that if Shavkat Rakhmonov can stay healthy and he can get a fight booked ASAP, I thought that he was going to be able to beat Islam Makhachev for the welterweight belt. But now we're never going to see that because this guy's always injured. And Shavkat Rakhmonov's probably going to go down as the biggest what if in UFC history, which is why I have to rate this as such a downfall that I'm so gutted by. At number 1, though, I don't think there's any debate about this. Tony Ferguson. Like, nothing comes close to a 0-8 loss streak. Like, I'm sorry, man. Like, how Tony Ferguson even stayed on the roster to lose 8 fights consecutively, I have no idea. But after every single fight he has had, he has looked slower and weaker after every single fight. And it's kind of sad because some of these guys he definitely would have beat had he been in more of his prime. Like, take, for example, Paddy Pimblett, Bobby Green, Nate Diaz. I truly believe that had Tony Ferguson not looked like a complete geriatric old man in the cage, I thought that he had a solid chance to beating all these guys. But thankfully, though, he is fighting at Misfits Boxing. He's undefeated in boxing, to be specific, and he's going on another run. But the UFC run over the last couple of years, kind of tragic. You know, he was supposed to be the guy who could possibly be Khabib. And fast forward a couple of years later, the guy's an unk who, like, we're praying for to get one win in the UFC, right? Or even in any sort of combat sport. So unfortunately for Tony Ferguson, like, I believe he had the most tragic downfall in recent UFC history. And I never hope to see anybody go on an 0-8 loss streak before getting cut from the UFC. Alright, that's going to be it for this video. If you guys want to see more videos like this, please make sure to like and subscribe so we can monetize this channel. But leave any comments down below what you guys think about this list, as well as any other video suggestions you have for me. But otherwise, though, I will see you guys next time. Peace.